standards and curriculum, how much of a role do you believe academic experts should play?
Academic experts are experts, of course, as deemed by whom? Who is it that says they're experts? Now, if it is the state board that's choosing teachers and says those are the experts, then you're right. We as teachers are experts in getting the education out to our students. So if the state board is choosing our fellow professionals, then yes, we should have those experts on the state board.
What I meant by academic experts was those in academia, those involved within the disciplines at the collegiate level. What role do you see them play?
As long as they have been chosen wisely by the State Board of Education, then they should play a role with these standards that have been set by the State Board of Education.
Thank you. Now, so Mr. Cortez.
Okay, Mr. Cortez, go ahead, sir.
I think they play a very relevant role. I think they should work alongside the educators in the relevant field that they've been asked to be experts in. Obviously, that's not what's gone on in recent times. You have majority of the State Board of Education who, like Ms. Berlanga said, they throw these standards in the trash and disrespect what our educators are doing. And so I think that they play a very important role, and I think that they need to be valued as such along with our educators.
Mr. Garza?
I think one of the major problems concerning the State Board of Education in regards to the academic experts is that there's no qualifying standard that the State Board has to define what an academic expert is. And once that standard is defined and more clarified, then it becomes easier to take the input from those academic experts in order to relate to the classroom needs and instruction and curriculum that the state needs to provide. At this time, it's kind of on an individual basis of what their academic expert is in relation to the arguments they want to make for or against a particular issue, to defend it or deny it. That seems to be more of an open play. So until we're able to, I guess, the board to come to consensus as to what the qualifications for those academic experts should be, and be uniform in that, then I think we can take that input. Outside of that, I think the classroom teachers are the most viable experts you can have and should rely on.
What standard would you use?
I'm sorry?
What standard would you use to determine?
Well, that's a pretty broad question. I don't think I'm at liberty to give any kind of insight on that. I may have perceptions, but perceptions to the reality may not be the same. So I would just like to say that I think that once this body comes together, that's one of the foremost agendas they need to address, so that they can be able to walk uniformly and directly towards the goals they want to achieve in order to qualify those areas. I have some perspective on it, but I think we need to have an open forum and a dialogue between all concerned to make sure you get all the aspects that are pertinent to that issue to qualify and define that what type of individual that you want.
Mrs. Sanchez?
I think experts in academia play a relevant role in the decisions, along with the school districts and the teachers. We cannot ignore them. I think both, and in my opening statement, I mentioned that both the experts in the academics, as well as the teachers and the constituents, are the ones that should be setting the standards and deciding on the curriculum issues.
Mrs. Turner?
I believe that a team of academic experts should contribute to 100% in the development of standards and curriculum. And these are experts who are content certified. They are also professors at the college level who teach in this content. They can be your your curriculum directors and so forth, as well as the teachers. We need the teachers to put our curriculum together because they know what is best. They know what needs to be altered. They know what needs to be changed. They know what needs to be modified and switched around so it makes sense and that our students can learn. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will move to the second question. All five will answer, and we will rotate. Mr. Cortez, you will answer first in this round. Candidates, will you support board action, and any necessary action by the legislature to strengthen the Texas Education Agency's oversight of charter operations and enforcement of charter schools' compliance with state quality standards, governance requirements, and financial accountability. And beyond that, to what extent do you support vouchers in our public schools?
Let me start with the last part of that question. I do not support vouchers. And with respect to the charter schools, I know I've had this conversation with members of AT and other similar educator groups across the state. My belief is this: if they're a successful group, leave them alone, let them grow. If they have a problem, if they're academically failing our children, then we need to take a hard look at it and figure out how we can remove some of these, I guess you would say, bad apples out of the mix and allow them back into our public school systems. It's a pretty simple philosophy for me. If they're doing well, leave them. If they're not, then we need to take a look at it and figure out how we can reform to make it easier to get some of these academically dysfunctional charters out of the way.
If I could just follow up on that, on those charters that are doing well, should they still meet the same state compliance and quality standards that our regular public schools must meet?
If they're given a level playing field as public schools are, I believe that they should. If they're still, and I've talked to some of these groups, and the challenges that we face right now in educating our kids has been overwhelming, not only for the charter schools but for public school systems with this $4 billion in budget cuts. So, it's not that simple of a question from the perspective of if they're academically providing a good service and have met the academic needs of that child, then I think they would be fine. Otherwise, I do think that we should move them out of the way.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on. Mr. Garza?
In regard to charter schools and regular ed schools, it's not apples to apples, it's more apples to oranges. And I say that in the sense that the rigor and accountability is far at a lower level for charter schools than it is for public ed schools, as we all know. I think one of the benefits of their success is the low teacher-student ratio, which we all know is a plus in any educational setting. That said, I think it's important that we should reinvest that in our own public ed schools first and make them viable to the need that they should be before we try to reinvent the wheel and give it to charter schools at a lower level of standard. As far as vouchers, I'm definitely opposed to vouchers. Vouchers are something that should not go to a non-public taxpaying entity, public schools or for public ed and for tax-paying purposes. I think that they definitely are a deficit and a detriment to the needs of public education.
Thank you. Celeste?
Well, let me tell you a story. I have been through the voucher system when I was assistant superintendent in San Antonio, and 1 year into it, and 1 year the vouchers came in, and by the beginning of that school year, we had to close down one elementary school and combine the middle schools. We had 5 high schools, and we had to combine them into 4 because everyone took advantage of the vouchers. It was a poor school district, and everyone took advantage of that. Guess what? By mid-year, we were getting students back. We were getting all the special ed students back. We were getting all the bilingual students back. We were getting the migrant students back because the private schools that had taken the vouchers were not serving those students. Furthermore, the parents who were poor could not keep up with the demands of the private school that wanted them to sell all of these tickets.
That means you have 10 seconds. You have a grace period, but...
Well, let me tell you then about charter schools. I do believe that they should be held to the same standards of expectations as the public schools. They receive public school monies, they should be held to the same expectations.
Ms. Turner?
All right, thank you. I support charter schools. I believe that all charter schools should meet the state standards. They should also be financially responsible, and they should also have a rigorous curriculum. Parents education has left parents out of the decision-making process, and I hope to change this. I feel that our state's education system is moving in the wrong direction, and priorities are not focused on student success, but on accountability. If students or if parents were satisfied with the state's education system, then we wouldn't need alternative school systems such as charter schools. And the voucher system, no, I do not. I oppose it. It's not a system that is fit for our state. Thank you.
Thank you. So to follow up on this one, on a perceived successful charter school
Yeah.
that you might deem successful, would you require that they meet the same accountability standards,
Yes,
and
they
quality
should.
standards?
AYP, yes.
Thank you very much. Ms. Anzaldua?
Accountability standards, making everybody a success. I think that's what we want from our students. Why would you hold one to a higher standard and not the other? Why? Why? It should all be a level playing field. Now, some charter schools are extremely successful, especially in the valley where I am from. You've got your Idea Academy. I've seen students leave the public education and then come right back because they couldn't handle the rigorous curriculum that was set up by that school. So if they're doing it to a higher standard, then why wouldn't we want all of our children to be held to a higher standard? So yes, everybody should be held to a high standard to have student success. Now, as far as vouchers are concerned, I think I'd like to see vouchers in place. Because at this point, my husband and I were looking to see about private education, and we found that it cost about $3,000 versus the $9,000 that is spent per student. So I think there needs to be something modified. And if the school is not successful, there's a reason why it's not successful. There's a reason why they're leaving. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now go on to the third question.
Okay, I'm going to start with Mr. Garza on this one. What is the level of scientific consensus that you feel must be achieved for a scientific theory to be taught to students in the classroom?
The level of scientific consensus needs to be uniform throughout. And the experts, so-called, in that field that qualify the scientific theories or issues that the curriculum they need to have, should be all at the same level of understanding and should be committed totally at 100%.
So it should be 100%?
Pretty much, yes, I would say 100%.
So a quick follow-up question. When it comes to scenarios that are not fully understood, like gravity, how would you feel those should be handled?
Sorry, what was the question?
Gravity is not a fully understood theory. Should that be something that is also taught in school?
I would say no, not when you're talking about that, in that regard, no. I'd say that would be something that have to be something that would not be instructed.
Okay. Mrs. Sanchez.
Okay, I believe that it should be a supermajority of at least 75% of the consensus in order to embed a scientific theory into our curriculum. However, I believe that that theory should be taught as a theory and not as an absolute. Thank you.
A follow-up question. When it comes to scientific theories, what is it? Is a theory the same thing as a fact? And what's the difference between a theory and a fact? Just really quickly.
Well, okay, sorry to think about this. I still believe that even though that the theory and the fact of what I think and what is, it needs a consensus of what is, because what is not an absolute. I don't know how to explain it in any other way, but it's not an absolute.
Thank you. Mrs. Turner.
All right. Scientific consensus should depend on several factors. One, testimony from science teachers about the specific issue that's being addressed, such as global warming or maybe the existence of dinosaurs. Making sure content is going to be useful and relevant to the content and grade levels. Scientific theory should be founded on well-established methods of scientific investigation. Also science, as well as other things in the, that we discussed. History has shown that scientific theories are not always permanent. So when we do curriculum and we come up with a consensus, it must be tentative and it should always be subject for revision or abandonment in light of facts that is inconsistent with the theories that we are trying to push through our schools. Science curriculum needs to be developed by experts, free from political and cultural self-achieving interest groups. Focus on content and focus on the relevance, and that is our students are going to gain something from what you want to teach them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Anzaldua, sorry.
I'll show you. Weight Watchers, Atkins diet. Those were experts that told us how to lose our extra weight. So there's different ways of getting things done, and sometimes we find out that that's not the proper way. No, eat bread. No, don't eat bread. No, eat meat. All right. These are people that have gotten together as a consensus. Now, I'm stating to you, consensus does not make science. I'm sorry. For starters, science and consensus are mutually exclusive. No matter how many scientists vote that the earth is flat, sciences prove it is round, and it is verifiable. Science is verifiable through repeated experiments. So look at what is being asked here. Is it a consensus that we're going to eat bread or not? Thank you.
For a follow-up on that one, the so you're saying that science is not a consensus-driven process, and that scientific theories are not determined their validity through the peer review consensus-making process?
It's proven through repeated experiments, not through a bunch of scientists getting together and forming a consensus based on the way the questions was written.
So the scientists don't perform experiments?
I'm saying that they get together and they kind of think that you will not eat bread, therefore you will not be fat.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to...
Oh, no, sorry, Mr. Cortez.
Mr. Cortez.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, sure thing. What is the level of scientific consensus that must be achieved for a scientific theory to be taught to students?
And you were referring to as an adoption for curriculum by the state board?
Yes.
I mean, I think that for me, that's very simple. If the education community has vetted it and they're okay with it, I'm okay with it. I don't want to get elected to be your state board of education representative so that I could sit there and at the 11th hour rewrite it. These people have already come before us. Unless there's some of these extreme members like Ms. Berlanga mentioned that are appointed by some of the members of the state board, then I'd look at questioning it. But if it is our scientific panel, along with some of our science educators in our education community, in our school systems within the state, then I'd be okay in accepting what they're presenting to us for adoption.
Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We will move on to question number 4, and this question will start with Ms. Sanchez. There has been an increase in software computer firms selling online education programs attempting to replace face-to-face interaction with instructors. Will you support legislation to ensure that face-to-face interaction with instructors and fellow students is recognized as the preferable method of delivering instruction for pre-K through 12 students, barring exceptional circumstances, for example, when a student can't attend live class because of ill health or disability?
Absolutely, absolutely. I've been at the high school. I've seen what our students that are taking online courses are doing, and they're doing very well. I do believe, though, that we should limit them. But I've seen the students that cannot do online courses. They need one-to-one, they need mentoring, they need hands-on, they need a conversation, they need to study, they need to discuss, and they need to show their products and what they're doing. So absolutely, I believe that one-on-one interaction is the preferred method of instruction. I know that it is for me when I'm learning.
Thank you very much, Ms. Turner.
All right, thank you. As a teacher, nothing can really replace face-to-face teaching, but there are certain circumstances where students are just not able to attend regular traditional way of education. And we have lots of family situations that occurs, and students just need an alternative way to get their diploma. So are we going to exclude these groups because they can't come 7 to 4 and attend 7, 8 hours of schooling? Or can we provide them so they can at least get their GED or a diploma so they can start working and moving on to the next phase of their lives? Thanks.
Can you elaborate a little bit, other than ill health or disability, what are some of those criteria that might be conducive for online education as opposed to face-to-face interaction as a preferred method of instruction?
All right. A lot of kids drop out. We have many students who are in truancy because they do not show up to school and they lose credits. And these are kids who are 13, 14, 15, and they are making decisions that are not in their best interest, and they don't have parents who are supportive in bringing them to school and ensuring that they get an education. And then when they find that they really need to go back to school and they can't get a job, then they go back. And we have a program, this in GPISD. Within our system, we have credit recovery, and there are programs to help these kids get back on track and so they can continue with their studies. And there's nothing wrong with that. Not everyone is going to go K through 12. There's a lot of bumps in the road, and we just can't forget them. Thank you.
Thank you. We move to Ms. Anzaldua.
The world is changing. Technology is in our schools. We have in our valley a school that is giving all of the students in the high school iPads. So, based on that, do we want to integrate more technology where we can possibly service more students? Is it the students here that we're talking about, or is it about teachers fearing the loss for their jobs? I say that if we change the curriculum somewhat so that it is a modified way to teach these children, that's fine. I do believe that in the primary grades, they do need to have representation of the proper way of learning in the society. But once they get up into a different level, junior high or high school, I don't see why they shouldn't be learning online. You know they're already playing games on their little iPhones, so why not?
As a follow-up, I think there's a broad consensus that integrating enhanced technology is important to supplement to the classroom. But I think the question is, will you support legislation to ensure that face-to-face interaction with instructors and fellow students is recognized as the preferable method of delivering instruction?
As a preferable method for students, yes. But I do believe that come the future, we're going to have to change it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cortez?
Yes, I would support legislation making face-to-face instruction the preferred method of delivery. But on this topic of technology, I would broaden and go as far as saying I would like to see the State Board of Education through its actions and the monies that are passed down for textbooks to take in this cost to cover the cost of technology, such as iPads or HPs or Dell tablets. I mean, there's stories out there that I read just a month ago. Apple has a textbook for $15 on an application, you know? The average cost of a high school textbook is $110. And here we're spending millions and millions of dollars. I think we need to engage our young people in the state and our professionals in our legislative body and having this conversation about how we're going to power on our children. But having face-to-face as the preferred method of delivery instruction. But they need to get engaged.
Thank you very much. Mr. Garza.
I would concur that face-to-face instruction is the most preferred. In my line of work as a pharmacist, my everyday practice of dealing with customers and patients and a face-to-face level has been found to be more beneficial. Irrespective of the technology internet that they have access to and print media, their inability to correlate and understand the various aspects of their medical history with regards to the medicines that are being prescribed puts them in a deficit. It's information, but it's not knowledge. And I think the face-to-face incorporated with the technology we have today for our students to engage them and keep them motivated is a hand-in-glove type of situation that's going to enhance education as a whole. And we need to utilize any and all tools that we have that are available to keep them in the classroom and engaged in success of the curriculum.
Thank you very much, and we'll move on to question 5.
Okay, Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
how much emphasis on Hispanic contribution should there be in the social studies curriculum?
Since I teach history, Texas history and U.S. history, I'm familiar with some of the leaders and the heroes that we talk about and we discuss in my class. But as a SBOE member, I would support any group of people that has had a positive or negative impact on our history. We have so many people that are not recognized, and it's just like the Hispanic groups, as women and Asians and all sorts of minorities that have played a strong role in our history. We need to remember all groups of people. And, in teaching Texas history, I get so many questions about, where are a lot of our heroes? Where's this person? Where's that person? How did this all take place? And so, as a teacher, even though it may not be part of my curriculum, we will go and research people in areas that they want to learn about. But I believe it's very underrepresented in our curriculum and in our textbooks, yes. And that is something that needs to be looked at and needs to be changed and corrected.
Thank you. Mrs. Anzaldua. Did I say it right this time?
Yes, you did.
You're phonetically writing it out, so I'm sorry.
That's a good way to learn.
Thank you. My Illinois education did not have a Hispanic contributions in it.
Hispanic contributions. All contributions to our United States is important. We have people here of all nations, I think, that should be recognized. Now, we're choosing the PC term right here for our Hispanics, but I know that it's felt that Hispanics are left out, but you have to look at it as it was brought about earlier. The Tejanos, the ones that were here to greet Mr. Bowie, yes, they were instrumental, of course. That's why we're here in this great state of Texas. So the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cortez.
This Saturday they're going to have the Cesar Chavez March here in Corpus Christi. As I was coming up the Cesar Chavez Parkway earlier today, I was thinking of the story my mother shared with me this weekend about when she was a teenager living in Castroville, California, and she marched with Cesar Chavez. And how appalling it is that for personal reasons or for political ideology or just because you could, that one of your appointees to the State Board of Education would recommend to remove such an important figure. I've had educators in the Valley tell me, just because the State Board says I can't teach it doesn't mean we're not going to teach it. I'm going to go bring my own book and I'm going to teach it. And I hear these stories in South Texas and I wonder what our State Board has come to when these sorts of things are happening. Why can't we just get back to the basics and teach our kids what they need to learn without all this politics at the State Board level? This is why we're ranked 43rd in the nation in graduating our young ones. They're not focused on the important things.
Thank you. Mr. Garza.
I also concur with the fact that I think we need to value all the cultures that have helped the development of this great state of Texas. In whichever format they bring some history or economy or effort of their contribution to the state. I think the important thing thing to understand is that the goal of education is to disseminate the truth and also the advancement of knowledge. That being said, the truth is not always perfect and not always pure. So there have been some negative things that have been contributed that we need to take note of. Not for the sake of the negativity of it, but for the sake of gaining knowledge and ensuring that we don't make the same mistakes again as a new industry and a new culture in today's time. So I think we need to value any and all cultures that we have and their contributions because they're all of valued importance to our growth in the future of this state.
Thank you. Ms. Sanchez?
Hispanic contributions to forming the state of Texas and getting freedom from Mexico is very viable, important, and should be taught to our students. Our students need role models, and there were a lot of role models in the process for Texas independence. However, I also believe that all ethnic contributions that were of either positive or negative, if there was a lesson to be learned in the negative, should be in our social studies curriculum.